just to give you guys an idea, because most people in this webinar should have the full courseware product. So this is just a sample course. I know a lot of you might not be using the Martini textbook, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what this may look like inside of a pre-made course. So it'll look something like this. In lots of the pre-made courses, we've actually put some pre-made quizzes in there for you already. So if you're really pressed for time, that sort of thing, and your class starts in 3 days, you really could pretty much just plug and play one of our pre-made courses, including the quizzing. So that's one option that you have, is you could utilize what's in there as is. And I'll show you guys throughout the next 50 minutes how you can also customize things as well. But generally speaking, this is what it'll look like. So you'll see here, just to start off with sort of the most basic two concepts here, that we have both practice quizzes and then we have our graded quizzes. And the practice quizzes, those are the ones that are built into the apps themselves. So into our Atlas app or into our A&P app. So those ones do not go into a gradebook, anything like that. Those are really just for some extra help for the students, self-guided assessment before you get into the real lab practical or something like that. So they're very helpful because they will tell the students what they got wrong, and it'll correct them. So that's why they're really helpful as practice quizzes. But you can see here, we've put some in there, the practice quizzes. And just to give you an example of what I mean, why these are good as a practice, here I am in our Atlas app, and I'm just going to click on one of these muscular system quizzes here, just to give you guys an idea of what it looks like for anyone that hasn't seen these before. Now, if I get the question right, you move on. If you get the question wrong, which I will do, you have the option. It'll tell you that you got it wrong, and you can see the correct answer in there. There they are. So it'll highlight the correct answer for you. So that's why we say it's a really good learning exercise rather than an assessment. Because again, grades don't go anywhere. You as an instructor can't see the grades for these, for the students. And then the other thing to keep in mind is that these ones, because they're hard-coded into the apps themselves, these ones you can't actually customize. So you can't take out a question or add a question into these. These ones sort of come as they are because they're coded right there into the website. But the good news, which I'll show you in a minute, is that the graded quizzes are fully customizable. So that's where you can really dig into it. As far as these practice quizzes, and then I'll pause and see if there's any questions, you are not able to remove questions and things like that. You can decide within your assignment which quizzes are in there from the apps, but you can't decide which questions are in there. So you could come in and edit out this multiple choice quiz completely, or add another quiz in there from one of the apps, but you're not able to remove number 7 from one particular quiz. Any questions about the practice quizzes and how you might want to utilize those ones? All good in the chat?
Can you not clone the quiz and then edit out question 7? This is from
not
Kurt.
For, say that again, sorry.
That was from Kurt.
Okay, good question, Kurt. So I'll show you in a couple minutes, actually, with the graded quizzes. Yes, absolutely, 100%. You can take one of our pre-made quizzes or a quiz you made or a quiz that one of your colleagues made even. You can clone it, and then you can remove that question, add more questions in, but you cannot do it for the practice quizzes. Those ones are static because they're built right in there. Just like the apps themselves, you're not able to edit the content itself. So all good. Any other questions there?
Oh, hold on. We have Christine, who I am going to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Christine.
Great. By the way, this is working really well. And just an aside, I had to do an action research project. And just a long story short, when I coded for responses, looking to if they were more engaged, visible body was 30%. The highest response, a positive response from the students in 3 different surveys throughout the semester. So they really, really like this platform, and so do I. So thank you for that. When I'm creating exams, I have to create it as quiz. And what I've been doing is having about 2/3 of it multiple choice and then a third of it labeling. However, I've had to create 2 different exams to do that. I'm not able to add the labeling quizzes to my multiple choice quizzes.
Yep. So I'm glad this came up. I was almost certain someone would bring this up because a lot of people have the same issue. The good news is this is something that is sort of high up on our list, something we want to make changes to. But for everyone else on the call, just to give you an idea of Christine's situation, the way that the quizzing is coded, I guess, the way that it's engineered in our system is you're not able to have different question types within the same quiz itself. So the workaround and what Christine is doing is within one assignment, so where the quizzes sit. So if I open this up, you can see this is my quizzing assignment, but within that assignment, I have a couple different quizzes. That's how you can set it up right now. But we are looking into ways where hopefully at some point we can combine those into one quiz, but definitely something we are aware of, Christine. That's the issue you were having, right? Where you had to have multiple quizzes in there?
Yeah, it just made, I mean, the whole idea for having courseware on my end is, have it be more engaging for the students, but it's also user friendly for the instructor because, the assignments are graded and they automatically, link up with our Canvas LMS. And
yep.
This way I'm having to parse it out into 2 and then manually go back in and do all the points together. So it's created an undue amount of work for me for exams. And I have to give 3 exams a semester because I had them vote on whether they wanted 2 or 3. So it's way too good to be able to have them label things in the 3D mode, but I can't have the whole exam like that. And just having 2 different scores come into Canvas, if you understand, that's the that's the big limiting factor.
Yeah, that's good feedback. I'll definitely mention that. I have a few people that have said that recently, the same exact sort of situation. So that is definitely noted. Thank you, Christine, and I'll pass that along.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I'm glad that was brought up because that does come up from time to time. So the workaround, as I said, is right now, if you wanted to have basically one assignment with multiple question types, or I should say one quiz with multiple question types, the way that you could set it up is you could have that one assignment and then have 2 smaller quizzes within there. So that's what Christine had. All right.
We actually have one more question from Sheena about the Canvas integration. Does Courseware push the quiz grade into the Canvas gradebook?
Oh, good. This is sort of related because this sort of came up with the previous question. So as you guys know, we have what we call a light integration with Canvas and with Blackboard, those 2 LMSs so far. the reason why I said light integration is that that next step hasn't occurred yet. So we have essentially a single sign-on with those two LMS systems, but the grades aren't automatically going into the Canvas gradebook or into the Blackboard gradebook. That portion is still somewhat manual, but that is the next step. So I know we don't have a specific timeline or anything, but that is definitely something that's forefront that they are actively working on to have for both, at least Canvas and Blackboard, to have the grade books talk to each other with our gradebook.
I think that's it for now.
Okay, perfect. So let's see here. So those are your practice quizzes. Now, when it comes to the graded quizzes, we'll obviously spend a little more time on these ones than the practice quizzes. These graded quizzes, these are the ones that you can go in and edit as much or as little as you want to. So in other words, whether you just wanted to edit some of that surface level criteria, like a time limit or a number of attempts, I'll show you guys that stuff in a few minutes. But you'll have that opportunity, or if you wanted to dig down even deeper and literally pick the questions apart and remove questions, add questions, you could also do that too. So what I like to show is, because I think this is a common scenario, so this is sort of the example that I like to use, is what if we had a quiz that you like? It's great, it'll save you some time, but I think sort of like Kurt said in the first question, I think it was Kurt, there might be just one question that you want to remove. So here's an example of that. So if I go down here, I'm just going to jump into my question bank. That's where all of our pre-made questions are. And not only us, but you and your colleagues as well. You'll be able to see yours and your colleagues' questions and quizzes that you've made. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to find, say, a muscular system quiz, just an example one. And I want to show you guys that example of, hey, this is good. This will save me time. It's already pre-built, but I do have to remove something. We didn't cover one thing. So let's go in and say, I want everything visible body has made. But you can see here, you'll have all your colleagues listed as well at your particular school. So you can work from one of your colleagues' quizzes and make a copy of that as well. But you can choose visible body in this case, and then you get to narrow it down either using keywords or the filters. I like the filters personally. So say we're looking for a dissection question or short answer or multiple choice. Those are your three options. And then what you could do is you could even say, okay, I want a visible body quiz that's dissection, that's specific to the muscular system. And you could even get more specific than that if you needed to. So you could even get down and see there's 2 quizzes specific to the shoulder muscles that we've made already. And so what you can do is you can click on the particular quiz that you're interested in, that you've filtered down after doing some searching, and you can do a short preview over here on the right-hand side. So here's where that situation might come up. You might say, great, it's already 12 questions. That'll save me some time. I don't have to make them all from scratch, but maybe one of these questions, for whatever reason, you might want to remove. All you'd have to do in that case, so that you aren't changing the original, is that you would just click this clone button here. So you would just click on clone, and you would make a copy of it for yourself, so that then you can do whatever the heck you want with it. So I'm going to click save, and then automatically it'll be the first one on the list there. So that one that you just edited will be the first one on the list. And now you can see, unlike that original one, Now I can actually edit this. So now there's that edit button next to it. And this is what's going to allow me, if I scroll down, now I can go in, find that question, and I can remove that question that I didn't quite like. So say there it is there, I can click that trash, and I can get rid of it. Now, alternatively, on this page, within this quiz, because now this is your version of it, you could also go in and then search through our pre-made questions and maybe add a couple questions in here or remove a couple other questions. So there's some moving around that you can do within that quiz. And one other thing to point out, that automatically we do randomize the questions, but you can turn that off if you want. And then we also give you the option, if you're worried about cheating at all, that sort of thing, this pooling questions might help a little bit. So in other words, each of these students is going to get 7 questions out of these 11 that are totally random, in a totally random order. No one's going to get the same questions or in the same order. So that helps cut down on any sort of if you're worried about any sort of cheating too. This might not be the best example. I feel like it usually works better if you have a larger exam. But even here, you could even give it here with just an 11 question quiz. So that's really it. I just made my quiz. All you have to do from there, because remember what we've done now, if I come up to the top and I hit save quiz, all we've really done is we've made the quiz and it's just sitting in the quiz bank and you can go and find it. We didn't actually put it into our course yet. It's just hanging out in the quiz bank. From here, you're just given a few options. You can say, I'll worry about it later. I'll click the done button. I want to make another quiz. Or you could go in and you could make an assignment for that quiz right now. So you could take that quiz, put it into the assignment that'll be listed in the course itself. So that's what I'd like to quickly show you here, just to give you that full workflow. And after I do that, I'll stop for any questions. So you've made your quiz and then you say, great, let's take this quiz, we'll plop it into an assignment and off we go. So I'll click on assign this quiz. And what it's doing is it's just asking, which course do you want to stick this into? So I'll put it in that Martini one that I was using as an example. And this page here, people get a little confused about this. So just think of this page as a confirmation page. All it's doing is it's just asking you to confirm again, okay, which quiz was it that you wanted to make into an assignment? So you'll go in and you'll find it, there it is there. That's the quiz we just made, and you'll just stick a check mark next to it. This also gives you the opportunity, if maybe you wanted to also include another quiz in there that was already in existence, but just think of that as your confirmation page. And now all you do, we don't have to fill this all out, is you create your assignment, you name it, you give it a date, or you could give it a date later on, put it into an existing folder within that course, and then you can give it a point value, a time limit, a certain number of attempts that the students will get, partial credit, all sorts of different surface level qualifications and options that you have to give the students on these. So that's all you have to do. And I might as well, I'll just make an example one here. So I'll put it into this here, getting started, just for the sake of this example. This is obviously required, the point value, and you get to decide how it is, how it shows, whether it's points or percentage. And then you could play around with the time limit as well, if you wanted one at all, and if you did, exactly how long you would want to have that quiz. And then the last thing is the quiz feedback. You get to also decide when the student gets to see feedback, if at all. In other words, do you want them to get feedback during the quiz? Do you want them to see how they did after each question for them to be alerted if they got it right or wrong? Or do you want to wait till the end? And then that, when it is at the end, what are we showing them? Are we showing them all of the answers? Are we showing them just if they got it right or wrong? Or are we saying, let's never show them the correct answers. We'll just tell them, you got this right, you got this wrong. So you could play around with that and make combinations of that also. And what I did was I hit save as a draft because I didn't want to publish it or make it visible to the students yet, just to give you guys an idea of my where it is. So here it is here. I put it in this folder. There's my test assignment. I can move it around if I want to. And there within my assignment, there sits my quiz that we made. So think of it like that, where it's the quiz sits within the assignment and that assignment sits within the folder there. So any questions about that? How to take one of our existing quizzes and tweak it a bit?
Not so much questions as observations and thoughts. And I should probably say that when you write in the chat, it defaults to only us, the panelists, being able to see your chat. So when you're about to send your message, make sure where it says to, it says all panelists and attendees. That way everybody else in the chat can see what it is that you write. But Christine said that she had to be careful with the point value because she would point it at 1, thinking the software would assign that to each question, and had to learn the hard way to assign the total point value.
Good one. Yes, good point. Let me go back to, let me go back in here just to give you guys an idea of that. I'm glad that came up. So the point value, that point value applies to the quiz itself, or to go even further, that point value applies to each quiz within that assignment. So in other words, this particular one, we just have the one quiz in there, but in that earlier example, I think it was in here maybe. Yeah, there was 2 quizzes in there. So just to make sure everyone understands it, this was also happened to be 5 points. That 5 points will apply to each of those 2 quizzes. So just something to keep in mind when you are assigning point values. There's a little blurb and information button here that explains it, but we totally understand that sometimes people just overlook that as it's sort of hidden in there. But yeah, that's a good point, where the point value will not apply to each question. That'll be for each quiz. Think of it that way.
Right.
Very good point.
And then one more comment from Sheena. I love to make our practice quizzes here. I use unlimited attempts with feedback after each question. I have never had students beg for quizzes until I started using these.
Yeah, so thank you, Sheena, for bringing that up too, because we have at least in my experience, I don't know about you, Rachel, on your end too, but I've had a lot of people say they like to use these quote unquote graded quizzes, and they just basically repurpose them as practice quizzes just for the sheer fact that you can customize them and remove those questions and make it exactly how you want it. So yeah, and then like Sheena said, if you're making it that way, like low stakes, you could just give unlimited attempts, no time limit, or you could put a time limit. You can change those settings so that it's more along the lines of a practice attempt. Have you seen that also, Rachel, on your end, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, I have some instructors who use it as like extra credit to do extra quizzes for practice. And they set them up the same way with unlimited attempts and feedback at the end of the quiz.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, because if it's low stakes, you want to give them those correct answers too.
Mhm.
Yeah. Good point there. One other thing I just thought of that technically isn't in the quiz itself, but it's very much related, is if you guys decide to use the time limit, we do have within the roster, we do have a setting where you can accommodate specific students that maybe have a learning disability or for whatever reason at all might need extra time on a timed quiz. If you go into the class roster, there's no one in here right now, but you can see this option here. You're able to give them double time, unlimited time, whatever you want to give those students for their timed quizzes. And for those of you that use it, it's either Blackboard or Canvas, where you have to do this for each student for each quiz. The way that it works on our end is it is more of an umbrella. So it'll apply to all quizzes for that student. So you won't have to do it for each quiz that they take. Go in and individually do it. If you say that, say Courtney needs double time on her quizzes, that'll apply to all the quizzes she then takes.
And that was it. No other questions.
Cool. Okay, so now what we did there was we took a quiz, we edited it, we looked at the assignment itself. Some people prefer another way of attacking these. So that being, if I'm in the quiz bank, maybe you just want to not necessarily start completely from scratch and build out your own questions, but maybe instead of going in and removing a few questions, maybe you just find it easier to go in and just pick out, say, 10 questions that we've made. That way you're not removing anything, you're just grabbing questions that you like. Here's how you could do that. So you're in your quiz bank and you just click on create new quiz. And it's a similar workflow where you say, I want a dissection quiz, but instead of being presented with the quiz that's already made, instead you can sift through all of the pre-made questions. There's my muscular system, there's my shoulder muscles, there's a few questions. You can go in and you can pick the questions that you'd like to be in your quiz. So it's just another way of starting out and building a quiz, if you wanted to do it that way rather than taking an existing one and removing questions from it. Two different ways to approach it there. And the one other thing I should mention to take it to that furthest level is just be aware that you are absolutely able to create your own questions too, if you want to. So that would be within the question bank, of course. So not the quiz bank, but if you click on the question bank, that'll allow you to search through the questions just like we did with the quizzing, but up in the top right, there's where you can actually make your own question. So whether it's short answer, multiple choice, or dissection, you can create your own in there and select your own correct answers and all that stuff. The reason I bring this up is because if you are going to utilize custom questions that you guys make, the workflow that works best is make your questions first and then go into the quiz bank and make your quiz and grab your questions, or go into an existing quiz and add those questions. To give you an example why, if I'm in the quiz bank and I'm making a quiz, I'm just going to go in, pick out some questions. There's not an option in this workflow to say, hey, I want to make a quiz, or excuse me, I want to make a question. So that's why if you want to include custom questions, always go in and make them first, and then you can grab them and pull them into your existing quiz or a new quiz. I just want to give you one example of making a quiz. Multiple choice and short answer are, for the most part, pretty straightforward. Dissection is too, but it's a little different because you're choosing what constitutes as a correct answer when the student is clicking on a interactive model. So just to give you an idea of what this might look like, if you guys want to build these out, say my question was locate the deltoid muscle. What you can do is choose a view. So you get to choose which model are they presented with when the question comes up. Select the deltoid muscle. So I'll go in, I'll find a shoulder view and say there's my shoulder joint. That's what they're going to be presented with when the question comes up. And from there, remember, they're being presented with a model and they have to click on the correct answer. So you get to choose beforehand what would actually constitute as a correct answer. So you can either go down through these drop-down carrots here, or you can search. So there we go. So there's my deltoid. There's my left deltoid, and there's my right deltoid. So all of these I'm going to accept as a correct answer. You could get really specific, you could get really broad. It's totally up to you how you want to build out these questions. And I guess the only other piece of, maybe not advice, but just another way of attacking these and exploring these is you could play around with the view that you're presenting the students with. So in other words, you could ask them to locate a specific bone or organ or something, but you could give them a view with the full muscular system on there. So they have to dissect down through layers. So you can use this step number 2 kind of in a fun, unique way if you want there to be more dissecting involved. So we've definitely had some people do that. But that's the basis of it. This is the one part that maybe the first time some people are a little confused about, but just think of that as anything over here on the right, that's what you are constituting as a correct answer if the student goes in, clicks it, and hits submit. Any questions about that? Creating your own question in there? All good?
Yeah, nothing so far.
Cool. Now, one other thing, I'm going to go back to my course, and this works in a similar way. I just wanted to give you one other approach to making an assignment out of a quiz. So let me go back into this pre-made course, and I think this workflow is best if, think of it this way, if you already know the quiz is in there, you're going to use it as is, you're not really going to make any edits to it. If you're just going to, you're going to grab a quiz, make an assignment. This might be a good workflow where you could come in like you would do in other ways, create an assignment up in the top right. And what you could do is you could just grab a quiz right from there. So I'm going to grab something from my quiz bank and hit continue. And here it is here. You can go in, grab whatever quiz it is that maybe you made previous, or you just search for one and find one that you like. And then you follow that same workflow that we already did, but it's just a different way to approach it, especially if you already know the quiz is good to go and it's just hanging out in the quiz bank. You could do it that way, where you're coming in and you're saying, create new assignment, grab the quiz, and make that assignment. So there's a few different ways to do it. but it all ends up at the same tail end. I like to make sure if you're in there and you're exploring and you think you might be removing questions, adding questions, fiddling around a bit, I would suggest not going in this way by create new assignment. I would suggest going in through the quiz bank, because that allows you to do a little bit more exploring and cloning and that sort of stuff. Any questions about that?
Nope, I don't see any.
Nope, looks
Oh,
good.
Cool. Now, we mentioned this earlier, but I guess I just want to show you a couple things as it relates to the gradebook, because obviously that's related to quizzing. So let me pull up a gradebook where I have a couple fake grades in there. So here's one here. Now, first off, just to give you a visual, this is sort of what it'll look like. If you are, we didn't really talk about short answers at all. Those obviously will not be auto-graded. The dissection and the multiple choice will be. When it comes to a short answer, this is what it's gonna sort of look like here. So you have to obviously manually grade it because the student will put in a custom answer. So you can give them notes, you can give them credit, and you can do it that way. I don't think as many people use the short answer, but they are quite helpful and they're nice and easy to grade, but obviously it involves a little bit more manual grading in that way. But when it comes to these, see if I have any good examples here. Yep. So when it comes to the quizzes, you can come in, you can see the cumulative grade. You can come in and see, if you give them multiple attempts, how they did, how long it took them on each of their attempts. Those sorts of statistics you can dive into. You can also come in and on an individual basis, you can change a grade or modify quiz, meaning you could give somebody one extra attempt if they had a valid reason why they might need one, or you can extend the deadline. Same sort of thing. If there's an extenuating circumstance, you could extend the deadline just for one student there. So there's all sorts of things that you can do within the gradebook that you might find helpful, and we're continuously improving that. Such as today, we just had a release today where we made some updates to the gradebook to make it a little more visually, definitely visually easier, where there's less in each of these fields here, in each of these cells or boxes. And it's just crisper and cleaner, and there's a couple technical things that we fixed as well.
We are actually going to be hosting a webinar on the 22nd to showcase all of these new updates and changes. So
Perfect. Yeah, I should have mentioned that. I just saw you guys talking about that on Slack today. So yes, that's good to hear.
And actually, Anne asked if there was a way to shrink the gradebook so you don't have to scroll up and down and left and right separately. And that is actually coming in the next gradebook improvement, which is like, I think by the end of August.
yeah,
It's
they just it comes in batches, so that the first batch of updates has been released, and the second batch is going to be before school starts, I do believe. So
Okay.
yeah, I think end of August is.
And that will fix that. It will keep the top row frozen. So when you scroll up and down and back and forth, you don't lose the graded quizzes. You don't lose that information, because that is something we hear a lot, that it drives people crazy.
Yeah, and that's a good way to put it. And right in this case, you might not be able to tell what Rachel means, but if say you had 60 people in here, you would probably want those top fields to be locked and the names to be locked. And so that's what it's going to look like, is we'll we'll have it sort of locked on those top fields. Yeah, that's definitely something that that they were talking about putting in there. So constant updates to the
We hear
Gradebook.
you, I promise.
Yeah.
And we have a question from Kurt. So for short answer questions, are you able to add example answers for reference when grading?
Oh yeah, so you can add notes when you are grading. So for example, here's the one that I was pulling up. There is this spot here where you can give feedback. So you can give them an example of what might be correct, that sort of thing. And you can give them whatever the appropriate credit would be for each question in there. So yeah, there's definitely a place to put that feedback. Does that answer your question, Kurt? And by the way, you can even alert the students for those ones when you have graded those as well.
Oh, all right, Kurt, let me find you. Kurt has asked to be unmuted, so let's find you on the list. Here you are.
Hello, thank you. You guys can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you,
just
Kurt.
fine.
Perfect. So in other platforms, what I have done in quizzes that have a number of short answer or essay questions is in that platform, I can put in a preset feedback, which is the recommended answer, so that when I go back and grade of 4 or 5 different essays, I have a quick reference. What was I thinking when I put that question? What were the points that I really wanted to pull out? So that when I grade, it becomes a lot easier for me just to make that reference. And then also the student has the ability to look at that afterwards, but it's all pre-written. And then I can also do feedback on top of that if I want to. I'm curious if the feedback you were just pointing out is something you would type in one by one.
Yeah, I guess that would be more on an individual level. Yeah. So I actually like that idea though, having sort of a preset area where you can put what you were thinking at the time, but we don't have that as of right now.
Is that something, would a workaround be to write that in where you have like the assignment description? If you made the quiz an assignment?
Yeah, that's true. I guess it depends on when you would want the students to see that suggested answer. But yeah, if you wanted them to be able to see it prior, yes. If you wanted them to be able to see it only afterwards, I suppose you could put it in the assignment after the quiz is completed, if that makes any sense at all. There are certainly ways that you could kind of finagle it, but not something that you have on one of those other systems, Kurt, I think is the best way to explain it.
I'm writing that down though, so we can pass it to the.
Oh yeah, that's good. I love that.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Kurt.
Yeah.
And then we have a question from Brenda. Do all questions within a quiz have to be the same value?
No, and I meant to mention that. I don't think I think I skipped over that. So within the quiz itself, so where you can randomize the questions, add questions, remove questions. So for example, here's that one we worked on today. Here is the weight. So here is where you can determine which ones are more important than others, which ones should be weighted more than the others. And the one thing to remember is no matter what these numbers say here, this does not mean that this quiz is worth 11 points. This just means it's doing the math on the back end. So this assignment knows that the quiz is going to be worth, I think it was 5 points. So it's doing the math as to each of these is going to be worth such and such amount, but then you can weight these more than the others. So you can double one up if you think it's twice as important as, say, one of the other ones. But don't just try not get that confused with the points. This is the point will be static, so it'll still be worth 5 points. Within that 5 points, you can play around with the weight, and then the calculation will automatically be done on our end. I'm glad that was brought up.
Any other questions? We've got about 8 minutes left.
So I guess the last thing I want to mention, and then maybe any last minute questions or comments from you guys too, is the export CSV. So we mentioned briefly that for none of the LMSs have full integration yet. So the gradebooks aren't talking to our gradebook quite yet. For Blackboard and Canvas, we're working on that. But the way that it's set up for each of them is you can easily take these grades and you can export them to a Blackboard friendly CSV, a Moodle friendly CSV, whatever you guys use. And what I mean by that is when you export this into a Excel file, it should have the right amount of columns that your LMS system wants. So now you have that spreadsheet and you can easily import it into your Canvas gradebook or Blackboard gradebook or whatever you happen to use. So that's why these are broken out, because we will try to export it into a format that your gradebook wants so that it's easy to update it in there. So that's one little shortcut that helps a bunch of people. But that is, I think that's everything I had on my list that I wanted to cover today. Rachel or Courtney, was there anything that I missed or anything you wanted to mention, or were there any other questions?
Well, we don't have any other questions, but you guys have time to ask them. So, you know, no rush. We still have a few more minutes. As for anything you might have missed, I don't think so. I think you pretty much covered all bases. How about you, Rachel? Any thoughts?
Oh, you covered everything as it kind of came up. Like the big thing was making the questions first.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
then adding them to the actual quiz.
That trips people up.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the best way to think of it, is if you are going to make custom questions, just make them first, then you can worry about putting it in a new quiz or an existing quiz or whatever you're going to do from there, but always make them first.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we got a question from Brenda, actually. If you enter an answer for a free response, can you use that to grade the question? Oh, sorry. Can you use that to grade the question for you?
Oh no. So
will that answer be used for grading by your system?
So in other words, almost like in a way, an auto-graded type quiz. So no, the way that we have it, at least the way that I understand the question is, if you pre-type an answer in there, will it be able to auto-grade their answers? And unfortunately not. I think way back they looked at that, but it was too hard to pinpoint words, and because there'd be misspellings and stuff like that. So it is a manually graded style. Something to think about, though. I don't know how hard that would be to engineer, but something fun to think about.
I'll add it to the list of stuff to pass on to the team.
Yeah, we do hear that a lot with labeling. If they could type in,
Oh, yeah.
you can label, like, find these 10 muscles and label them. And those have to be spelled correctly.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where it gets a little fishy is, should you preset a bunch of answers and have also include misspellings, capital letters, lowercase letters, all that crazy stuff. All right, no other questions in there?
Well, we got about 3 minutes left, so we could end it here if nobody has anything pressing.
Yeah, and if you guys do come up with questions, once you start diving in, of course, we're not just gonna ignore you. We'll help. We can set up trainings, we can do a one-on-one, we can do whatever. We just wanted to kind of give you a baseline overview of how you could explore this.
Yeah, and always, feel free to reach out to your rep. They are here for you. Rachel can attest. Our sales team is pretty amazing, and so is our support team, and Matt's engagement team is phenomenal. So we are here to help you.
Don't forget the marketing team.
Oh, well. But with
actually posted something.
Oh, sorry, Kurt, didn't mean to ignore you. Totally missed that. All right. For free answers, that would be another point where having a pre-written answer on the instructor's end would be helpful for large free answer quizzes. Even if it's not auto-graded, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Blackboard does auto-grade those types of quizzes, and there is always a manual grading required. Okay. Kurt, I am also going to pass on that to the
Yeah, I
team.
knew there was one of the LMSs had something like that. It must be Blackboard.
Nope. Adding it to the list of stuff to pass along.
Definitely.
Awesome. Okay. Oh, Brenda uses that feature too. So, all right.
Cool.
I'll bump that up. Okay. Thank
And
you,
that's
everybody.
another thing. Oh, sorry.
Nope, I'm shutting up. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say that's another thing, that if you have suggestions, we are always interested in hearing them.
Yep, that's how the changes happen.
Yeah, we love feedback.
Like, for real. I'm sure you've all dealt with huge corporations that say your feedback is important, and you might feel like it isn't actually, but that's how we actually do make the changes. So your feedback is important to us.
Okay. Well, on that note, I think we can end it here. I am going to be sending out that email tomorrow with this recording, so you can watch it again or forward it to your colleagues. I will also be sending some follow-up items for you. So, our support site is very robust, and we have tons of tips, tricks, and tutorials. I also want to send you guys a link to our pre-made courses page, where we have tons of pre-made courseware courses, some that are, for specific topics, and others that are correlated to specific textbooks. And
actually our list is much bigger than that page. So if you don't see your book, contact your rep.
Oh, good point.
Yeah, chances are we have it.
Yeah, there's a lot more that are on there.
Yeah, if we put everything on that page, it would just be too unwieldy. So,
yeah.
And so and some other goodies are also going to be in that email. So keep an eye out for that tomorrow morning. And just a reminder again, we have a webinar on Monday from some amazing gentlemen from La Trobe University in Australia. Again, that's going to be in the evening if you're on the East Coast, so 6 o'clock Eastern. I will be sending out the invite for that this weekend. And we also have the Gradebook upgrades webinar where we're going to showcase all of the new stuff in this batch. We'll have another webinar when we have that second batch of upgrades before school starts. So, but that first batch is going to be on the 22nd, and I will, of course, send out an invite. So keep your eyes peeled. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us. And if you have any further questions about quizzing and or about the gradebook, just shoot your rep an email or email our support team, and we will get right back to you. So, all right, everybody have a great rest of your day, and we will see you next time.
All right. Bye, guys.